Hi everyone, so today we're going to take a look at 2.7 population policies. And our learning objectives are to explain the intent and effects of various population and immigration policies on population size and composition. And we are particularly looking at those that promote and discourage population growth, such as pronatalist, antinatalist, and immigration policies, but not really that last one right now. Our tidbit of the day is that Marie Curie is the only person to ever have won Nobel Prizes in two sciences, physics in 1903 and chemistry in 1911. So we're going to start with antinatalist policies, and remember that natal means birth, anti would be against birth. So these are policies that are discouraging people from having children. These are usually reactions to concerns about population growth exceeding resources. So the goal is to reduce risk from famine or disease and to maintain resources, sufficient schools, jobs, and future services. So we have a couple of really common examples. The first one is India. India introduced a national family planning program in 1952. So the government established clinics, they gave info on alternative birth control, they gave free or low-cost birth control devices, and they legalized abortion. In the 1970s, they opened sterilization camps largely under Indira Gandhi. These primarily targeted lower caste men and women and for financial incentives because we're looking at people in extreme poverty. The main form of birth control in India continues to be female sterilization, although usually it's after women have had multiple children. The second big example, and maybe the most well-known one, is China's one-child policy. So this was in place from 1979 until 2015, and the aim was to lower the overall fertility rate and birth rate and get the population under control. In 1980, the CBR, or crude birth rate, was 18. In 2018, it was 12. This meant that the NIR, the natural increase rate, went from 1.2 in 1980 to 0.5 in 2018. And the UN predicts that the population will actually decline by 2100. In many cases, what we see is mandatory contraception and forced sterilization through this policy, particularly when we're talking about women. Now we're going to look at pronatalist policy. So again, natal meaning birth, pro meaning for. So we are for birth or encouraging having children. So why? Well, there are concerns about an aging population. If we get too old, we no longer have a workforce, we cannot maintain our economy, we can't take care of people as they get older. So a pronatalist policy is going to increase the future workforce and meet economic needs for the future. Also, there are arguments that strong birth rates promote stronger economies and that having a family promotes personal well-being. So overall, what we see are some results and some consequences. So we're going to start with results. We often have mixed results. Usually, if the citizens agree with the government policies, there are stronger results. If they don't like them, they don't agree with them, the results aren't going to be very good. Pronatalism is often going to use a sense of ethnic or national pride to promote people having children. You want more people who are like you have babies. Both may include, and this is pro and antinatalist policies, may include financial benefits. So you could get things for like free daycare, baby supplies, paid maternity leave, particularly common for pronatalist policies. Antinatalist policies will generally include contraception education, family planning support, and often financial incentives. Don't have children, we'll give you more money. Okay, so some consequences, and there are a lot. In India in the 1970s, as we talked about, there were sterilization camps. So we had a lot of men who were sterilized without their consent. Some did consent, but it was realistically under coercion. So they would consent in exchange for land and for not being cited for something as little as riding a train without a ticket. Remember that we're talking about people in extreme poverty, so they were often extorted to be sterilized. In 1976 alone, there were 6.2 million men sterilized. More recently, women have been the focus of sterilizations, especially in very, very poor areas. And if they are paid for sterilization, and they generally are, the payment is equal to about 2 weeks' wages. So it's not very much money for having part of your body removed for never being able to have children again. In Nigeria, they put into place an antinatalist policy in 1998. The goal was to reduce the total fertility rate from 6 to 4. There was opposition from Nigeria's Catholic and Muslim communities, both of which tend to be very, very anti-birth control of any sort. And the TFR still is incredibly high. We're still looking at approximately 5 children per woman, which is one of the highest in the world. Globally speaking, we have had many, many examples of forced sterilizations. Women in particular are vulnerable, often because they're more ignored by society and because they are less likely to fight back because of social norms. Widespread and structural sterilization actually violates international law. It's considered a human rights violation. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen or it hasn't happened. In Bangladesh in the 1970s, they had a lot of sterilization camps and things similar to what was going on in India. They had voluntary sterilizations, which were highly exploitative. So again, we're paying people very little money to be sterilized and targeting incredibly, incredibly poor people through this. In Brazil, women in particular have been coerced into having sterilizations because of poor economic circumstances, low rates of employment, and Catholic religious mandates that stipulate that sterilization is less harmful than abortion. In Canada, we've had a few instances, including in the 1900s, the late 1900s, Indigenous women in Alberta and British Columbia. The goal in mind here was eugenics. So in China, we had the one-child policy where we saw a lot of forced sterilizations, and in 2020, we have also seen the Uyghur population have forced sterilization in concentration camps, and these are ethnic Muslims in China. In the United States, we've also committed a lot of forced sterilizations of Indigenous women, of Puerto Ricans, of people we consider mentally unfit, and this includes a lot of different groups, including women who got pregnant when they were unmarried, and women who were considered promiscuous, people who were physically disabled in some way, sex offenders, and homosexuals. In South Africa, women with HIV have reported being sterilized without their knowledge or consent. And then we've had many other cases of forced sterilizations in places like Japan, in Sweden, in Switzerland, Denmark, Israel. Germany obviously is very well known for the Holocaust and the forced sterilizations in the concentration camps. In Peru, in India as mentioned, and others in Guatemala and in Colombia, just to name some of them. All right, that's it. So our learning target, again, we were trying to explain the intent and effects of various population and immigration policies on population size and composition. So in your notebooks, what I want you to do is to describe positive, negative, and unintended consequences of pro-natalist policies. Then I want you to explain which policy or policies neo-Malthusians from the last video would most likely support. And that's it. Make sure you go back and rewatch if you missed anything or feel like you want a little refresher. Make sure you read in your textbook, and have a great day. Bye.